It's not real. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I took the staples out. I'm a coward. Hello, card gamers. Today, I just wanted to go over some staple cards that you should probably be considering to be in your deck, whether you're playing hero or villainy or any of the other four main aspects. I've listed out 57 cards that they're either exactly staples or they do the job better than any other card available that it's trying to do. So if that's the thing you're trying to do, then this is the card for you. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's start off with Blue Villainy, Inferno 4. Inferno 4 is basic. It is the 2-drop in space for Blue Villainy. It actually is a great effect. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You can put however many of them you want on top of your deck or on bottom, and in whichever order you want. It's the best we've got right now. It would be awesome if instead it was a 3-2, but it's a 2-3. It's the best we've got right now. And the deck fixing is awesome. Next, we've got Death Trooper. Solid unit. It can kill a ground unit or help you kill a ground unit. It has synergy with Krennic. It has synergy with effects that heal. It's just solid. It also has Imperial and Trooper tag. Really solid. Next is Power of the Dark Side. A very strong removal tool for Blue Villainy. If you're able to clear off weaker units, you can kill gigantic units with it. It also can kill leaders. So it's an awesome card. It's probably going to be in basically every Blue Villainy deck for the foreseeable future. For a Blue Heroism, we've got Restored Arc 170. This is literally just an X-Wing that also heals you. If you're playing Blue Heroism, there will probably be... there should definitely be 3 of this in your deck before you have any copy of the plain X-Wing, but similar to Inferno 4, there's not that many great options for blue in space, and as a 2-drop, this is totally fine. Of course, Luke Skywalker. If you're playing a Blue Heroism, especially right now, there's no way to have a fast enough deck that you wouldn't consider Luke Skywalker. And Restore 3, he's going to kill something when he comes into play. It's sometimes even a gigantic thing. He has great tags, great stats, immediate impact, awesome card. Now, I wouldn't say Yoda's exactly a staple, but it's definitely extremely solid, worth considering in any Blue Heroism deck. The stats are okay, and it has Restore too, so solid anti-aggro. An aggro player's, it's going to be conflicting for them whether they're like, oh my goodness, do I try to kill this 2/4, or do I try to ignore it and think I'm going to outdamage it? It's a tough choice for them. And also, when Yoda dies, you get to draw a card, which is not terrible. So, solid choice. For generic blue, we've got Make an Opening. This card is actually really awesome because since it is giving a unit minus stats, if the unit just has 2 health, or even like 2 health remaining, Make an Opening is going to eliminate that unit and it's going to heal you as well. It also is damage that essentially goes through shields. So if something is shielded but it only has 2 HP remaining, Make an Opening is just going to ignore the shield and make it die, and you're going to heal too. It's really solid. Now, this isn't necessarily going to go in every single blue deck, but blue does have great removal, and this is one of those tools. This could also just be a solid sideboard option for you if you end up playing against yellow decks, especially Yellow Villainy with 7th Fleet Defender. It's going to be making Crafty Smuggler and 7th Fleet Defender cry continuously. Take down 4 resources to defeat something that's 5 or less HP remaining. It doesn't have a leader restriction on it, so you can save your 4 resources for when your opponent deploys their Sabine, and then this just completely defeats Sabine right out the gate. very solid choice. Yeah, it can hit space too. It's awesome. Vanquish, also pretty solid staple. It doesn't, this is also one of the cards that wouldn't necessarily need to be in the main deck, you know, especially depending on the way you're building the deck, but definitely worth having some number of it in your side deck at least, because if you end up playing against a control player that is playing gigantic units, or even it's just great for destroying a Fett's Fire Spray if you're playing against Boba Fett, because sometimes it is hard to interact with space, and Fett's Fire Spray has 6 HP, and Vanquish just gets rid of it immediately for you and can save you a ton of damage. For green Villainy, Seasoned Shore Trooper. Now, there could be reasons in your green Villainy deck that you wouldn't have Seasoned Shore Trooper, and maybe you would choose some other units, or maybe you have enough 2-drops, but green is really good at ramping, and when you have 6 resources, this becomes a 4-3 instead of a 2-3, and for 2 resources, that's really awesome. It has Imperial and Trooper Synergy, which are pretty useful tags. It's solid. It would be insane if this was a 3-2, and then it went to a 5-2 when you had 6 resources, but that's not what it does, but it's good enough now. Super Laser Technician, you probably know about this card. It is ramp, and it's great. It's a body. You can play it out. There's all sorts of combos in the game with this card. You basically, if you're playing green Villainy, you're probably playing this for this entire year. I don't know what type of deck you'd be playing that wouldn't put 3 of this in your green Villainy deck. It's that good. It's insane. Darth Vader, the most expensive card of the set, and I do think it is slightly overhyped. I think that it is a very, very good card, but also 4/7 resources in green Villainy. It's great. It's awesome. Yeah, Ambush gives it immediate impact on the board. The stats are great. You get to basically draw a card, that exactly the card that you want, and play it for free, as long as, you know, it costs 3 or less, and it is in a Villainy unit. And there's all sorts of ways that this combos: Cell Block Guard, Boba Fett, Death Star Stormtrooper, Death Trooper. I mean, but also the Death Star Stormtrooper and something else. Sometimes you can do multiple. It's crazy. It is a really, really, really good card. Is it like $100 good? I don't think so. Fortunately, in this game, I think Reinforcement Walker is probably like just the best green unit, and can completely, in my opinion, replace Darth Vader for people who don't want to have $300+ worth of cards in their deck. So we'll get to that soon. But Darth Vader, very good. Green Villainy, you're probably playing this card if you have it. Overwhelming Barrage, yet another green Villainy card that I just can't imagine you not having 3 of this in your deck. It really doesn't matter what way you're trying to play green Villainy right now. I'd probably say it's incorrect for you to have any less than 3 of this card in the main deck. Like, literally, it is that good. Being able to give a unit plus stats for the turn, and then being able to spread damage however you need to deal with whatever threat it is. A single big threat, 2 little threats, maybe a big threat and take a shield off something. It's just crazy. It's very versatile, insane, and just an uncommon. It's a great card. For green Heroism, Battlefield Marine, it has no text on it, but it's a rebel and a trooper. It costs 2, and it has 3 attack, 3 health. It's insane. It's technically, you could say, overstated. There's no other 2-drop in the game that has better stats than this card. It's going in every green Heroism. Now, Mon Mothma is probably not exactly a staple in green Heroism, but it's close enough. If Mon Mothma had 2 power, it would probably just be a staple. It's crazy. You search the top 5 cards for a rebel card and you draw it. Now, you get only 1 power, but that's totally okay. It's totally okay. This card in Green Han is definitely a staple, being able to search for a card to replace the cards in your hand that you've been using as temporary resources. Basically a staple. Definitely worth considering. Echo-based Defender, 3-cost green heroism unit. It has Sentinel, and it has good stats. Its stats aren't overstated, but they're good, and it also has Sentinel. The fact that it has 4 power too allows you to be a little bit more aggressive, and yeah, I mean, you can't really complain. Solid card here. Bright Hope is a space unit that has Sentinel, and this card is actually pretty insane. After I've gotten to really see some games with this play out, this card definitely surprised me, and I feel like overperformed. Even with it only having 2 power, it is able to kill some of the weaker yet more aggressive ships, but there's a decent amount of ships in space that do have 3 HP, and so Bright Hope isn't able to eliminate them. But because it is a Sentinel, it's pretty annoying for aggressive strategies, because sometimes they might even have to attack this 3 times, which is crazy. And the when played effect of being able to return a friendly non-leader unit to your hand and draw a card because of that is pretty useful. It's especially useful in Han Solo, like I mentioned before, but there's a lot of good when played effects that you can get again, like a Fleet Lieutenant or Leia Organa, and also you don't have to do it. If you need to keep your units on board, or you don't need to draw a card, it's an optional effect. So just a chunky HP Sentinel space unit. It's great. Rogue Squadron Skirmisher, another green heroism unit. It costs 6 and has 4 power, 6 HP, ambush, and when played, you get to return a unit that costs 2 or fewer from your discard pile to your hand. That effect is no shock, surprisingly also useful in green Han Solo. If you're playing green Han, this card is actually insane. And ambush with 4 power, really awesome unit here as well. It's got the Rebel tagline as well for anything that's trying to synergize with that. It has good stats. It has immediate impact. It has card advantage. It's great. All right, Home 1. Now, I wouldn't say Home 1 is necessarily a staple. It's a legendary card, and it is good. It is very, very good. But I also don't think that you need to play it. If it is legendary, if it's not super expensive, it's less than $10. But if you don't have any, you're going to be just fine not playing it. Like I said, Reinforcement Walker is green's savior. It's so good. But this card is really, really powerful as well. Not to be underestimated. Here we go again, playing green Han Solo, you can get a Millennium Falcon from your discard pile, bring it out, and it's readied when it gets played. So sometimes you get that immediate impact on the board too, because Home 1 is bringing back a Millennium Falcon that it can attack. Or you can bring back an Echo-based Defender for free in the ground arena that has Sentinel, which is immediate impact. It also gives all of your friendly units Restore 1. It itself has Restore 2. It helps stabilize pretty well. Like, most of the time if you're playing this card, you really need to be able to not die the turn that you play it. If you can do that, you're probably going to be doing just fine after this card is on the board. It's really good. But like I said, probably not exactly a staple, but it's close enough that probably every green heroism deck you're going to be looking at it and thinking, should I put Home 1 in here? Most likely. And then we've got Ewing Reinforcement. This is another, it's like fringe. It's like maybe it's almost a staple. But for me, I love this card so much in green heroism. Being able to, this card is really crazy. It reminds me of a card that I think I would see in like Hearthstone, where basically for 7 resources, you kind of get to draw 3 cards and play them. And sometimes it's going to be just 2 cards, but it's really strong. Sometimes 1, if you want to just deploy a 7 cost like Han Solo or something else. But it's really crazy. You get to draw up to 3 cards and play them. And once again, in a deck like Han Solo, where a lot of the times you don't have 3 cards in hand. You wouldn't be able to just play those 3 cards, and it's doing it with 1 action as well. It's really, really crazy. I think Green Heroism is going to be considering playing this card in every deck that gets made for some time. It's really good. Unless you really are just way faster than this card. If your deck is way faster than this, maybe you don't. But otherwise, I think you do. For the plain command cards, we've got Consortium Star Viper. This card is quite staple. Currently with Spark of Rebellion, there aren't a million space units, and so a lot of decks are trying to find solid space units, and this is a solid space unit. 3 cost 3/3. It has Restore, but only while you have the initiative. But it's great. It's still just decent stats. It's fine. It's fine. In the future, I definitely see this card getting power creeped, or you just, falls to the wayside. Maybe you don't need it anymore. But for now, I think it's a staple. Agent Callus. 5 cost 4/4 with Ambush. It also says when another unique unit is defeated, you may draw a card. That part is okay. It's like a bonus effect, and also this card is not exactly full staple. It's just really good for what it's doing. It only costs 5. It's a 4/4. It has Ambush, and it does something else. Now, something you might think about is Syndicate Lackeys in Cunning is a 5 cost 5/4 with Ambush, but it doesn't really see constructed play. So why would Callus? And it kind of is because of the bonus draw effect that can happen, but also because a lot of the times there aren't tons of units that have 5 HP or more. And so Agent Callus is usually going to do the job anyways. And if you're playing green, you're not often playing green Cunning, like except Han Solo, for example, and Syndicate Lackeys would never make it into that deck anyways. And Callus might not even either. You might decide to play Traitorous instead, but this is a very solid card for what it's doing. It's definitely worth considering. It definitely doesn't make it into every green deck, but it's definitely worth considering. And here's probably, in my opinion, my favorite card in the whole set. This card continues to overperform for me. It saves my life. It defeats my opponent. It is just amazing. I love it so much. Reinforcement Walker, 8 cost, green unit, 6 power, 9 health, and when played, and also on attack, you get to look at the top card of your deck. You can either draw it, or you can discard it, and if you discard it, you get to heal your base for 3 damage. What's really awesome about this unit is it doesn't have a gigantic amount of power, so it's not going to just kill your opponent next turn. But because of its on-play and attack ability, it helps you against whatever matchup you're in. If you're playing against aggro and you get to play this card, you get to heal 3 from your base, which is a lot of the times a 4 cause I believe in. You get to get yourself out of range of 4 cause I believe in, and then on the next action phase, you're going to be able to defeat one of their units or get their base destroyed, possibly. But if you're still trying to stabilize, you're going to once again get to draw a card, discard it, heal 3. So you're going to be getting the aggro further and further away from killing you. And against control, you're going to be continuing to gather more resources to keep fighting against control. It's man, I just love it. 3 of, I mean, maybe only 2 of in your deck, depending. But it's so good. And then Resupply, an event that costs 3 and becomes a resource. This card is part of why green is the best color currently. Of course, Energy Conversion Lab is as well. But when I was making this list of all these cards, Green Heroism, basically, like the cards that, if you're a green hero deck, the cards that you can use that are green, there's like 14 staple cards, like 14 really good cards. And Green Villainy has 10 staple cards that they want to use. And those are just more than all of the other colors. Technically, in my list, Yellow Villainy has 13 cards that they can use total that they got to consider. But overall, when you add up the totals of Heroism and Villainy in whatever color that is, green is just has more good cards than anybody else. Just, they do. And then next is Cunning. Cunning has more good cards that they can use. And then it's red, and then it's blue. But that's just a little middle of the video, or yeah, oh boy, middle of the video tip here. Man, if this video is going to take forever. If you watch all the way through, you're crazy. Hey, we'll just give a little color right here. If you've made it to this point, put 2120 in your comment below that you got this far. We're going to try to get through this a little bit faster. Here we go into red. Death Star Stormtrooper. It is a turn 1 play that has 3 power. Currently, in Star Wars Unlimited, that's mostly what we're looking for. There's a decent amount of aggro cards. Battlefield Marine that have 3 HP, and we need to be able to defeat them with 1 attack. So turn 1 plays with 3 power are good. We're trying, Travis, we said we were going to try to go faster. Imperial Interceptor. This card is almost always defeating a space unit when it comes into play. It's an immediate +1. It's also a space unit. It's probably in every red Villainy deck. Ruthless Raider. This might not make it into every red Villainy deck, especially if it's like Aggression Cunning, because you're probably going to have Fet's Fire Spray. But if you don't have Fet's Fire Spray, Ruthless Raider's probably making it in there. It has immediate impact on the board. It gets your opponent closer to being defeated. It's great. Really good card. Emperor Palpatine. Once again, it might not make it into every Villainy red deck, especially if you're trying to go faster than 8 resources. But even if you were, it's worth considering in the side because you're going to be able to clean up your opponent's board. The Emperor has Overwhelm as well. Once they get to attack, they're going to be dealing base damage as well. Really good card. Force Choke. Deals 5 damage to non-vehicle units. Yes, your opponent gets to draw a card, but in Star Wars Unlimited, drawing cards is not as powerful as it is in other games because we get to draw 2 every turn, and eventually we're just not resourcing anymore anyways, and we're drawing 2 every turn anyways. But it's nothing to scoff at that your opponent deploys their Sabine, and just for 2 resources, you can just Force Choke Sabine, instantly defeat her. And many other units are just going to get instantly defeated. Boba Fett unit, it's so strong. Force Choke, crazy. Spec Force Soldier. When played, it makes a Sentinel lose its powers for that phase. For hero aggression, this card is basically staple for now. Possibly in the future, it will get power creeped, or there'll be something better that it will just be more useful on average. But for right now, hero aggression, this card is great. Green Squadron A-Wing, possibly one of the best 2-cost cards in the set. It is basically Battlefield Marine, but in space. It has a raid 2, so on attack, it's going to be a 3/3. There are going to be times where your opponent is going to have a 3-power, 2-health spaceship, and they're going to be able to attack into your Green Squadron A-Wing, and it's going to die, and their ship's going to live, but that's okay. This is an aggro card, and it's basically the best one. Sabine Wren unit. This card is also basically yet again a 3/3. When it attacks, it can either deal a damage to whoever it's attacking or to the base. And yeah, it costs 2. It's a 3/3. You're playing it. Fighters for Freedom. This is a card that possibly also in the future will not become staple, but for red heroism, this card, it can ignore sentinels and shields. It has 4 HP, so it's a little bit harder to defeat especially early in the game. And then also has a passive ability that every time you play an aggression card, your opponent's base is going to take damage. It's crazy. Red 3. It's another spaceship. It's 2/3 in space. It's basically a 3/3 because it has raid 1, but it also gives all of your heroisms raid 1. It's a staple. In red heroism, it's a staple. K2SO, another heroism staple. It's a 4/4 for 4. And it has overwhelm, so when it attacks, it's going to be piercing damage. Like if it attacks a unit, it's going to pierce that damage through to the base, whatever's remaining. And also when he is defeated, it's going to deal 3 damage to the opponent's base. Or you can force your opponent to discard a card from their hand. Sometimes that effect will be relevant, but this card is crazy because you can combo it with Heroic Sacrifice, and you can oftentimes go through a Sentinel straight to the base. You're going to deal so much. I think it's like, I can't remember what the math is. Like a lot of times 11 damage just in one action with this guy on the board. It's pretty crazy. Guerrilla Attack Pod, another staple. Aggression Heroism, it's a 4/6. When played, if your opponent, or any base, even your own, has 15 or more damage on it, it gets readied. It also has grit, so it gets power for each damage it's taken. Energy Conversion Lab combos, where you can play this with Energy Conversion Lab, attack into a unit, defeat that unit, and then have this card's effect activate that readies it, of course, if there's a base that has 15 damage on it. And now it has even more power on it. And if your opponent's next action doesn't defeat Guerrilla Attack Pod, you're often going to attack their base for 7 damage that turn. So you're going to have destroyed something and attack a base for 7, and it's still a gigantic unit on the board. It's a staple for in red heroism. We mentioned 4 cards I believe in before. Now, this card is also possibly, especially in like set 2 or 3, this card might not be staple. Or maybe it does become staple because maybe there becomes more good red heroism units. So your deck is basically guaranteed to have heroes in it, and you can just use this card extremely reliably. Dealing up to 4 damage is crazy. Now, this does only deal damage to the enemy base. So if somehow in the future there's a control red heroism deck, this card won't be in there. But otherwise, it's a staple. It's crazy. Open Fire. It's just a plain aggression event. In an aggro deck, you're probably not playing this card because you got to hit the base and you got to play units. So in those decks, it won't be staple. But anything else that's red, that's not trying to just defeat your opponent ASAP, Open Fire is going to be a solid staple card. Of course, this card could get power creeped in the future. Force Choke, is cheaper and deals more damage, but this can hit vehicles, it can hit space units. It's worth considering in a red deck. All right, here we go. Villainy, Cunning, Boba Fett unit. Also, once again, this card is very expensive. If you don't have this card, it's okay. This card is very, very strong, and it is slightly overstated. It has 5 HP, but you don't have to play this card. If you don't have this card and you want to play Yellow Villainy, it's okay. You can play other cards. You'll be okay. For now, if you do have this card, you'll probably play it 100% of the time in your Yellow Villainy decks because it has a solid on-attack effect. It has solid stats. That's really all he's doing. It's not anything more than that. It's just the best we got for now. 7th Fleet Defender in space. This card is one of my favorites. It is crazy. It's got good stats and then a shield, and it just costs 3. It has the Imperial tagline, so you can buff it with other Imperial things. It can trade with other space units and stay alive. It's basically Imperial Interceptor, but you can play it a turn earlier. It's more proactive, whereas Interceptor is reactive. Your opponent has to have a space unit for you to get value out of the red ship, but this one you can just play it, and then whenever your opponent plays a ship, it's going to be under threat of this card just defeating it for free, essentially. Bosk, it is basically Agent Callus, but in yellow Villainy, but it has a bonus effect and a bonus health. I mean, Callus has a bonus effect too, right? But when you play an event, you may deal 2 damage to a unit. You can do it in space, on ground, whatever you want. The unit that you just attacked, maybe you didn't finish defeating it, and your next action is going to be able to, as long as it's an event, it's going to be able to do it. Bosk is a solid staple. Ambush is crazy. As you've noticed, ambush is kind of a staple keyword. All right, Fett's Fire Spray. If you're playing the Boba Fett leader or you're playing the Jango Fett leader in the future, whenever that happens, you're playing 3 of this in your deck. It's the rules. Unless somehow this card gets banned, something crazy. This card is insane. It comes into play readied, and it has 5 power in space, has 6 HP, super hard to deal with. It has a bonus effect. I mean, you don't really need to use that bonus effect most of the time, but just the being readied, immediate 5 power is crazy. I said enough. No good to me dead. Now, this card is not exactly staple. It's really, really good effect. It's very, very good. Nothing in the game does quite what this does. You get exhaust a unit, and then it stays exhausted next turn as well. It's good. But there's going to be yellow decks that effect is not exactly what they're looking for. So maybe they won't play it. Maybe they need something that is all the way going to remove it off the board. But it's really good. It's really cheap. It's definitely worth considering. Leia Organa in Cunning Heroism currently is a staple. I can imagine other cards being better than this card in the future, but she does offer combo potential on turn 1. You can sometimes play Leia and play a 1-drop like Greedo. Also, it's 2 costs, so it combos a lot with some of the Han Solo leader effects where you're going to be able to get stuff back from the discard pile back to your hand, and being able to exhaust any unit, a space unit, a leader, is really powerful. If she had 3 power, she would be completely bonkers. So crazy. But currently, right now, still a staple. Han Solo unit. Once again, ambush, surprise is a staple keyword. Very good stats for ambush. And then also, while Han Solo's attacking, if he defeats the unit that he's attacking, he doesn't take any damage. And that's pretty threatening. It is really annoying for your opponent too, because if they're not able to end the game really soon, like in 2 turns or less, then they have to figure out how to defeat Han Solo, and that's kind of annoying. All right, Greedo. So, you know what we said? Turn 1 plays with 3 power. That's really all we got to say here. But it's when defeated effect. Sometimes it's going to be able to allow you to deal 2 damage to a ground unit. It combos with a lot of things, such as the yellow villainy. What's his name? Oh no. Grand Admiral Thrawn. Yes. Insane there. That's staple in Grand Admiral Thrawn. Greedo and Thrawn are glued together for the foreseeable future. But yeah, 1 resource for 3 power. We're playing it. Crafty Smuggler. It's a shield. A turn 1 play. It's the best we've really got in Cunning. We're playing it. Shoot first. This card, not exactly staple. There's going to be plenty of Cunning decks that won't play this card. But it's basically Han Solo unit's effect, but for 1 resource, and gives a unit +1 power. So you can do that as your first thing in a turn. It combos really well with Boba Fett leader because you pay 1 resource, your unit defeats something, and then because something got defeated, your leader is going to be able to give you that resource back. It's worth considering for sure. You probably don't play 3 of this card ever, but it's good. Surprise Strike. This card is probably a 3 of in every Cunning deck for the foreseeable future. You noticed how For a Cause I Believe In could deal 4 damage? Well, this deals 3 damage in it. Basically, the only condition it has is that you have a unit that can attack. Funny enough, literally at my locals, just this past week, in the same tournament, 2 different games in my Green Han Solo deck, 2 different times, I'm pretty sure it was the Reinforcement Walker too. I had the Reinforcement Walker on down last turn, helped me stabilize, and then the next turn I used Surprise Strike and Reinforcement Walker and defeated my opponent because they had 9 or less HP left, and Reinforcement Walker 6 power plus the 3 power from Surprise Strike and a hit to the base. It's crazy. Literally, this card sometimes reads like do 9 damage to your opponent's base, and it's crazy. It's gonna be a staple for sure. Waylay returns a non-leader unit to the opponent's hand, or to the owner's hand, that is. And for 3 resources, that's great. I mean, sometimes you're going to have to return something that has a when played ability, but sometimes you're just going to have to do it. And in yellow, it's in a generic yellow, so anybody can do it if they've got yellow in their pool. It's a solid effect. There's going to be some decks that might not play 3 of it, but 2 of it is definitely worth considering in probably every cunning deck, unless you're literally going hyper super speed. Maybe this doesn't fit in there, but it's worth considering. Now, Snow Trooper Lieutenant is one of the cards that is, for now, it's like almost a staple. It's like it's really good, actually. This is another card that if this had 3 power, this card would be bonkers. This card would be absolutely staple. Oh my gosh, so crazy. But it's good enough. And for set 1, it's good enough. When played, you may attack with a unit. If it's an Imperial, it gets +2. It's really relevant. This card is sometimes, it's almost like a Surprise Strike that has a body on it, a 2/2 body on it. And that's really good. It's really, really good. Definitely worth considering in your villainy decks. If you need some more 2-drops, think about the Snow Trooper. Speaking of 2-drops in villainy, Viper Probe Droid. 3 of this is going into every villainy deck I play in set 1. Absolutely, every single time. I'm not even going to think about it. I'm not even going to think about putting less than 3 Viper Probe Droids in every villainy deck I play in set 1. I love this card. I love to look at my opponent's hand. When I first read this card, I was like, wow, I couldn't believe how just giving this game was with effects that let me look at my opponent's hand. And great stats. Turn 1 play, 3 power, we're playing it. Cell Block Guard. It's a 3/3 with Sentinel. Currently in the game, aggro is very, very strong. If you're playing villainy, you're probably going to have to play some number of this card. Probably 3, maybe sometimes only 2. But a 3 health, 3 power Sentinel, you're just going to have to in villainy for the most part right now. Alliance X-Wing. This is really hilarious to put on here. It's not really a good card, but it's kind of the situation that we've mentioned before, that it's a space unit. We don't have a bunch of space units. It doesn't have 3 power, but it's a 2/3. It's in space, and a lot of the times in Heroism, all they care about is this Rebel tagline, and that they can play it on turn 1. It's kind of just good enough. There's gonna be reasons in some decks, maybe you're not gonna play 3 of this, or maybe you're gonna somehow play 0 of it. But there's a lot of Heroism decks right now that they can't really afford to not play it. The Fleet Lieutenant, a 3 power, 3 HP, 3 cost unit, and when played, you can attack with a unit. If it's a rebel, it gets +2 power for this attack. It's kind of like the Snow Trooper Lieutenant, but it costs 1 more, and it has 1 more power and 1 more HP. I do think this card is strictly better than the Snow Trooper Lieutenant, but it's great. You get to trade up a lot of the times when you play it, and actually having 3 power and 3 HP makes it a solid body as well. It does combos with Bright Hope, where you can return it back to the hand and then do it again. It's pretty cool. It's a great card. Wing Leader. This is also a card that might not make it into every Heroism deck, but it's a space unit, and it gives 2 experience tokens to another friendly rebel unit when it's played. And that's essentially kind of immediate impact on the board, because you're playing this card when you have another unit. And if you have another unit, you might have not attacked with that unit yet this turn, so you can play Wing Leader. Your other unit gets bigger, and then that's going to sometimes make it so that your opponent was planning on trading favorably into that unit, but now they can't. So now they need to either hit your base with their unit or try to do something else. And then now you've got a bigger unit that's going to either be able to trade positively into your opponent's units or hit their base with more power. It's a strong card, and also the hyperspace of it is so crazy. A beautiful blue sky everywhere. Love it. And then this last one, Medal Ceremony. It's another one of those cards. It's not exactly staple, but in heroism decks that are trying to go fast, this card is crazy. In any card game that is resource based, if you can play a card for literally 0 resources, it's almost always going to be powerful. Almost always going to be a staple. And especially in a game like Star Wars Unlimited where we get to draw 2 cards every turn, this card is crazy. This card is crazy. Like I said before, it's not going to fit into every single heroism deck in set 1, or, you know, especially for the rest of time. But for now, there's a lot of aggro or semi-aggro heroism decks, and they probably want to play some number of this card. Maybe they don't play 3, but it's a solid choice and staple worthy material. But that is it for this video. Hopefully these were helpful for you. I made a little, I'll just show you. Maybe I'll show you. Yeah. I've got I turned this into a deck list essentially and called it Staples Set 1. I'll try to put this in the description. So if you want a list of it too, because funny enough, I tried to take the deck list image. If I make a deck image of it, it's gigantic. Oh my gosh, yeah, it's sitting here loading it forever, and it makes this gigantic picture, and it doesn't sort it the way I sorted it. In here, you can sort it by the card number, which essentially sorts it by color, and that makes it easier to see when you're like, okay, green villainy, that's over here. We got these green villainy things, and then the plain green stuff is over here. So the list is going to be more helpful, I think, than the image, because the image just does it by cost, and, you know, all the colors are all crazy. So I will leave this deck list link in the description so that you can reference it in the future. Maybe save it in your notes app or something, or you can just save the link to this video in there if you want. I'll try to place some timestamps so you know where green villainy, green heroism, etc., are. Geez, yeah. Hopefully this was helpful for you. And I'll see you in the next one, okay? You can leave a like if you want. If you don't, it's okay. My life will go on, and I'll still be happy. But leaving a like is cool too. All right, bye.